My name is Shayna Jane, a certified sobriety health and wellness coach with 14 years of experience in the treatment industry, and also my own history with substance abuse. As the founder and CEO of Controlled Chaos, I've made it my mission to provide a supportive community for those facing alcoholism and addiction. This podcast is a real, no-nonsense exploration of life in sobriety. No sugarcoating, just real, honest conversations. Life after addiction can be a crazy, wild ride. And here at Controlled Chaos, we're here to tackle it head on. From navigating relationships to finding purpose, we're your lifeline in chaos. Let's dive into the real challenges of sobriety and carve out our path together. I love y'all mucho. Let's go.
Welcome to Controlled Chaos. I am your host, Shayna, and this is my friend and old colleague, Laura Martinez, and I'm so excited to have her on. We've known each other for quite a while now, and honestly, she's like somebody that I consider to be like a spiritual guru, and somebody's just so amazing in working with people and helping you like just change how you look at things and how you feel, and such a cool way of doing that. So can you tell us just like a little bit about it yourself?
Yeah, first off, thank you so much for having me on. I love being with you. This is so nostalgic for me. We go way back, so this is really awesome to be on your podcast. So a little bit about me is I am a licensed therapist. I'm also a shamanic practitioner, and I also have a lot of knowledge in neuroscience. And when I work with a client, I tend to converge those three different modalities. So I have a private practice in Fort Worth, Texas, and am absolutely loving it. I also build retreats and workshops and tend to offer about a workshop a month on various things like intuition or manifestation or inner child work, which is totally my wheelhouse. And I also run a meditation group in Fort Worth that meets every Friday. And that's just been a ton of fun to open that up to the community.
I love that. And I'm so proud of everything that you're doing just on your own and with your own business. It's so cool to see us both like growing and doing the damn thing, right?
Yes. I'm so proud of us. Our former selves would not even believe this.
I cannot even. So a little bit about kind of what we went through together. We worked in residential treatment. We worked with a lot of Dr. Phil clients, things like that. People who were like super just struggling with sobriety. Maybe had never even thought about sobriety. And they would come all the way to South Padre Island and see us and a whole bunch of other super qualified people and get sober. And tell us a little bit about what your experience was with that.
Oh man, I loved working in treatment. I was there for about 8 years, and I was the director of the neuroscience division, and it was what we called it was psychoneuroplasticity, which means psychology.
Because I still can't say it.
And it was psychoneuroplasticity, and it's basically a psychological brain change. And what we would do is we would work with every single client, and we had the men's center and the women's center, and they would come over and we would customize a treatment plan for them to help them get their brain back into healing. Because as you know, when somebody gets to a treatment center, they really have to detox. And so we helped them just kind of get back into alignment and also teach them ways that they can change their brain and ultimately empower themselves. And so I had the best memories there with working with the staff. As you know, I know you and I tag teamed a lot, especially when a client was trying to leave treatment and they were not in a healthy mind space to do that. We would, Shayna and I would tag team and just love the client into staying basically and give them reasons why they can change and they can transform. And I loved the training that I got at that treatment center because I feel like I got exposed to every type of personality, every kind of diagnosis, if we were going to talk about diagnoses. And I feel like I was so fortunate to work on that island.
I feel exactly the same. And part of my story is that I worked there for around 8 years too. And I was in sobriety and relapsed quite a few times and finally ended up getting out of working in treatment and kind of getting sober, doing my own thing. But I cannot even explain to you the tools and the seeds that were planted there, especially with the P&P department, you and OBS.
Yes.
Yes, the seeds that were planted that I was able and still come back to in my everyday life, in my everyday sobriety, where that now 3 years sober, it's almost like it's not even a daily thing anymore for me to think about alcohol or drugs or anything like that. Like I really just live a life. And so much of that comes from what I learned there, working there, which is so crazy. And we were all such young babies too, compared to now.
I know. I started working there when I was 23, 24 years old. And we kind of grew up there and we dealt with some really serious life situations. And and the training that we received from the people that worked there, it was amazing. And two of my mentors there was Dr. Lawless and Dr. Peavy. And Dr. Lawless and we still go and have lunch every other Wednesday. It's our routine. And he's just been such a guiding light in my life and a mentor. And so,
I definitely that. So going back to all the treatment days, can you think a client, not necessarily, who it is, obviously, but what is your most memorable thing that you dealt with in those days, or situation, diagnosis, that type of thing?
There's so many to choose from. I feel like every day when I would get home from work, I would be exhausted, but my heart would feel so full and my spirit felt so uplifted that my hands were in the work and doing the work with these precious souls. I'm going to get emotional, but I think that some of the memories that I remember that I loved the most was doing shamanic journeys with the clients. And this is whenever I started to really dive deep into my shamanic self and bringing that into the recovery process. And so basically, for those of you who are listening that are like, what is that? What is a shamanic journey? So a shamanic journey is known as the flight of the spirit or the flight of the soul. And you take clients down into a trance state, and not hypnosis. Hypnosis is more suggestive, whereas a trance state leaves it open to the client's interpretation. And so you can guide them down with meditation, and then actually the repetitive drumming is what induces that trance, because your brain is pairing with the drumming and you go into theta brainwave state. And once you go into that trance, you journey, and we can go into the upper world, the middle world, or the lower world. And based on those different worlds, they have an experience. And those were always so magical because they would last maybe about an hour and a half, and they would come out of the trance state and they would have these magical experiences, sometimes very hard experiences. Maybe they meet their inner child, or they meet a loved one who's passed, or they have this epiphany about recovery. So those were, for me, the most precious times. And something else, I can't choose between these two. I also did ceremonies and rituals for clients. And when they got to the end of their stay and I felt like they had worked really hard and they had transformed, the team and I, the P&P team, the psychoneuroplasticity team and I, would create a customized ceremony for them. And it would be so beautiful. I know that you were at Plenty, and we would have fire, or they would, we were by the ocean. So it was just this beautiful backdrop setting that it's allowing them to heal or change or proclaim that they're going to live their life a different way. Those times are extremely sacred to me.
Yes, I got to participate. So for those of you that don't know much about anything like that, like letting go ceremonies or things like that, it would be something that you choose to do in like a ceremony form. And we were, of course, by the ocean, and the clients would get to choose people in their life, or people, at the center who were really important in their journey. So if you got to go, which I got to attend many, I was so lucky. It was a very special and like heart-changing thing because somebody's choosing you to be a part of their personal experience and changing of their world. And like, I just so lucky to be a part of something like that. So cool. Like so many things that we got to experience that people will never know or understand, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the sacred container. And the word that's coming to mind right now is vulnerability, is this sacred container. And the client, whoever was chosen to do the ceremony, would really show their soul and their heart and get very vulnerable with the other people about their struggle in their life. And every day we're working in this sacred, vulnerable container, and people are healing and transforming. And it becomes this incubator that allows people to transform because there's no judgment, right? There's no judgment to any of this. It's just, hey, you can heal and I'm healing too. And we're going to support each other in this process. And I used to really love the relationships the clients would build together.
Yes. And I actually got to do my own letting go ceremony with you. And that was favorite experiences on the island. My children got to be there and just letting go of so many things that I had gone through in the past. And I actually pulled up old photos of us that night and we're posting them with the podcast today. So that was super special just to even remember those times, right? Like again, like working in treatment shaped who I am today, and I'm sure who you are. Not just the people that we worked with, which that's what we were there for, and that was the best. But oh my goodness, did it change me?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I completely changed who I was by the time I started working there to the time that I left and decided to do my own private practice. And it's so funny because I'll have clients now in private practice and they'll say, girl, it's going to be a tough one today. Like, just buckle up because it's going to be hardcore. And then I hear what they're processing with me. And I'm like, no, I mean, I worked in addiction treatment for 8 years. Like, I have heard it all, you know. And with that, I do want to say, I think it's important as practitioners and coaches and therapists that we really take care of ourselves because, you know, I've been learning a lot about secondary trauma and us taking on traumatic experiences just by listening. So just kind of want to put that little piece out there because we did deal with some really hardcore situations.
Yes. So my funniest experience, I had somehow just, you know, ballooned up to like 300 pounds. So I was getting big by the end, right? And one of the clients was running away from treatment and she took her backpack, her sweatshirt. It's like 90 degrees. We're in Texas, y'all. I'm from Michigan, right? Like it's hot on a regular day for me. She's got like her sweatshirt on, her backpack, and she's running down the beach and like, it's just me. And I'm like, finally, we're like 3 miles deep. And I'm like, listen, girl, just for me, can we be done? I can't breathe. Like, yeah, girl, let's go home.
You know, whatever it takes.
I'm like, I don't know about you with your little backpack just running like nothing happened for 3 miles, but can we just go home? Can you do me a solid?
Oh my gosh, you're making me remember. I had a memory where a client ran down there was only 3 streets in South Padre Island, but she was running down the middle street from the treatment center, and I had these big badass heels on.
And I look so cute.
Oh my gosh, thank you. And they were brand new, so they had not been worked in yet. And I am darting in these heels, and I catch up to her, and she said, "How did you catch up to me?" And I said, "I don't know, the grace of God, because I don't know how I just ran in these heels towards you." So,
I have no idea what just happened.
Yes, exactly.
So much fun times. So much fun times.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. Great times.
Okay. So what do you think that is the most important thing that you've brought with you from the old days into your journey of, you know, being in practice on your own?
You know, I think that one of the things that's just coming to mind right now is when you're working in treatment, you have the support of all kinds of different staff. You know, you have the recovery advocates, you have other counselors, you have the executive team, you have everyone, even the ladies who were doing the cooking and the cleaning, they were supportive parts of the treatment, I believe. And so in that setting, you can really get down to the nitty gritty and hit the client hard with some truth, right? When you're in private practice, it's a completely different beast, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to go a little bit slower. You have to realize that they're going to go home. They're not going to go back into the treatment, right? They're going to go home. They're going to go back into their day-to-day lives. They might have a doctor or psychiatrist that they're working with, but you're it, right? Usually you're the only mental health person they're seeing. So you have to just be very cautious about how you're doing the work. And it's more of a delicate process being in private practice than being in treatment. But I think what I took from that treatment experience into private practice is that if you meet the clients with your heart and you stay with your ethics and you align with the ethical practice, that makes the best outcome for the client. And I do believe that you get to really practice your ethics in treatment because there's things that happen that really do challenge you. And so I feel like I'm an extremely ethical, but still very heart-centered therapist. It's just a balance between those two things. And it's important to keep your boundaries, and it's important to communicate these boundaries. And it's also important to communicate that you care and that you're providing a compassionate space for these people. So I think if there's any big lesson I learned from working in treatment to now, that's probably the one.
I love that. And you're right. The boundaries are so important, and they are very hard because the thing is you're with these people for a long period of time. So they become someone that you love and care about. They are almost like, family. And it's like you still have to hold those professional lines. And I find that is easier in the like at-home coaching realm than it was in treatment, because it's like a everyday 120 days or more, right? That you're with these people and you love them, you care about them, and you have to keep those boundaries strong.
Oh yeah. I think I've gotten so good at it that even clients now that try to put me in, like, sometimes I'll have clients try to put me in a mom role, and I will call it out right away. I was like, it appears that you're attempting to put me in kind of this mother role. What's going on with that? And just calling it out like that is so important, because then you can use that as part of the minutia of the therapeutic rapport that you have with the client.
Yes. All right. So tell us, Laura, how do you change? Like, if you're struggling with alcoholism, addiction, things like that, how do you start to change your mind frame and how you look at things? And how does that kind of coincide with alcoholism, addiction, those type of things?
That's an excellent question. I think the number one thing that we need to be aware of whenever we want to make a transformational change is starting to really be aware of yourself. Awareness is the biggest key. If we're talking about addiction, if we're talking about alcoholism, it's recognizing how you have a problem and maybe what's underneath that problem, right? Once you have that awareness, then you can start to change it. And I really do feel like the second part of the transformation process. So you have the awareness, right? And you're looking within and you're noticing, oh gosh, I'm doing these patterns and I'm reacting to these behaviors in a certain way. And the second time is, in neuroscience, we call it disruption or dispersion. And that's whenever we start to consciously make a different choice, right? And you have to recognize what that different choice is. So I'll give you an example, because I like to talk about with stories so people can really understand what I'm talking about. I had a client recently, and he recognized that he was just getting really angry all the time. Like, the anger was just coming up to the surface. And this was actually a good sign for him, because he had lived so much of his life hiding away. And so he wanted to transform. He wanted to stop hiding himself and just minimizing who he was. So we were doing this work and he was like, but now I'm so damn angry all the time. Like, I can't stop the anger. I don't want to be this way either. And I told him, I said, look, you were aware that you were masking yourself. And now you're aware that you are masking anger. So let's stay with this awareness and notice how you're acting out in anger. And I asked him, I said, how do you want to be? How do we want to transform anger? Do you want to be passionate? Because I do feel like the other side of the pendulum from anger is actually passion, right? Do you want to be passionate? How do you want to show up? And he said, I have no idea. And so that's important for us to process. Like, where do you want to go? Because if you don't know where you want to go, it's going to be hard to manifest or transform yourself. So I think that second step is to recognize, who do I want to become? What do I want to do? If I could visualize it, if I could feel it, if I could activate those emotions, what would they feel like? And then so once you start to make that change, right, you go towards choosing that instead.
So I love that because I do a lot of work with the 12 steps, but I do a lot of other things too, right? I feel the 12 steps are great, but I feel like there's so much other stuff, like the things that you work around, right, that help with recovery. So one of the cool things is in like the 6th, 7th type steps, things like that, with character defects and whatnot, it would always be like, okay, here are my character defects. This is what I want them to be, and let's pray about it, and God takes it away. And that's how I understood it at first, right? And the truth is that, well, I have a really close relationship with my higher power, I have yet to see anything just be done for me, right? There's always some type of work involved, right? Like, I've never just been like, hey, God, fix this, and it's done tomorrow. Although, sometimes good things happen, but you get me.
I got you.
So one of the coolest things that I learned in one of my step classes, and I think it kind of pertains to what you were saying, was that you don't just pray for character defects to like go away. You think like, what is the opposite of this? And how do I stop myself and put that into play and try to do that over and over again? And the more times you do that, the more that becomes your habit. And your character defects, which I don't even love that word, because sometimes they work for us, right? They work for us, right? But those things that you don't like about yourself start to change. And that's kind of what you're talking about.
Absolutely. And what you're saying is that you are establishing a new neural pathway in your brain to how you want to live life. And in order for us to change from that original neural pathway, we have to decide, well, what's this new neural pathway look like? I'm all about visualization. So can I visualize it? And more importantly, can I activate the emotions with that visualization? So for this particular client, he was a pretty passionate person, but it was just like, it looked like anger, right? So I had him visualize, what is it like to be passionate? What are you passionate about? Do you like to clean the oceans? Are you passionate about kids getting out of foster care? Like, what is your passion? So he started to visualize this and activate those emotions, right? And so that right there within itself is laying down a neural pathway, because our brain doesn't know the difference between visualizing it and actually doing it in real time. So once you visualize, your brain thinks, oh, this is me. This is what I'm doing. And the more times that you redirect from the old neural pathway to the new neural pathway, the more it becomes your norm or your set point.
And that's one of the coolest things for me, because you often hear this, like, that's just how I am. That's my personality. That's this, that's that. And oftentimes we say that as like a security blanket, because we're not really happy with that behavior, right? But we somehow attach it to us. For instance, and I just use myself all the time as an example because no one else is here. But but lying was a huge thing for me in my addiction. And it really just came with me out of my addiction, like lying for no reason, right? And I don't know where that came from, or at the time I didn't know where that came from or why, but just like I didn't want people to know certain things, or I didn't want to talk about it, so I would just make up a whole new story, and this is the story, and this is what we're going to go with, and just move on. Well, it's not cute after a while, right? So I picked that as my character defect. And, I'm in sobriety, I'm an adult. I no longer have a reason, or I never did have a reason to lie to people. I'm an adult. Like, I had to tell myself that if you choose to drink as an adult over 21, there's no reason for you to lie about that. Why are you lying about that? It's because you don't like what you're doing, right? So I put it in and I wrote it down, because for me, if I write it down, it starts to be like final in my head, right? If you're going to choose these behaviors, you're going to choose to be honest with them. So you can either choose to say, I'm choosing to drink, and if my life falls apart, then it falls apart, and you deal with those consequences and what people think and what they say. You're going to start telling the truth every single time about every single thing, no matter the consequences from now on. You're choosing these behaviors. And it really kind of helped to stop the behaviors, because, when you're lying to other people, you're lying to yourself.
Yes.
Most of it, you're lying to yourself, and you're believing it, and you don't even know it.
Yes. Oh, exactly.
So that was my huge awakening or experience with like changing a pathway in your brain. And obviously I don't have the Laura lingo, but I did get it from, my experiences working with you guys and learning from you guys. Is like, hey, if you want to change something, you need to put something in place. You can't just say, oh, I don't want to lie anymore. Okay, well, what is the action to stop lying? And that was a hard realization for me, but it really, I would say, was one of the most pivotal points in me getting sober. Was like, you're a grown up. You can choose to be an alcoholic and a shitty mom and a drug addict, and you can continue to do this until you die, or just, go to jail, or just live miserable for the rest of your life, right? You can choose that. Is that what
Oh yeah. And I think what you're talking, I like to work a lot with my clients with internal family systems, which is working with the different parts of you. And whenever we identify, like, it sounds like you have a part of you that you would say maybe is a liar, and that's an inner child wound that you might have, right? Or something, because I think you disempowered that thought of, oh, I'm an adult, I can lie whenever I want to. So sounds like maybe there is an inner child involved with that, right? But I like working with it because it's all about acceptance. And it sounds like by you doing that, you accepted and loved that part of yourself. Like, hey, you can do this all you want to. I had a porn addict, and I told him, I said, you're an adult. If you want to watch porn, you can watch porn. It's fine. Mm-hmm. And he said, I don't know what it was. He told me later, he said, I don't know what it was, but when you told me that, it just like took away all the power. And he's now recovered and doing really well. But it's just, you're right. It's allowing yourself to accept that part of you, even if it's something that you don't like a behavior that you're not fond of, right? It's all about acceptance and loving all of the parts of us.
Yeah. And I think in some ways, as just people, we tend to think like, or maybe it's easier to think that things are just happening to us. And, not that things don't happen. Things happen, right? That we don't like, we can't control. That's not what I'm saying. But a lot of the things that were happening in my life, or, in other people's lives who are trying to get sober, trying to change any behavior, right? A lot of these things are things that we're choosing over and over again. And although sometimes with addiction, that choice is not necessarily there at the time, but it is something that you're doing. So, I can do this, I can continue, but like, if I want to change it, what do I do? And I think that that's so cool about changing the pathways. And it's something that a lot of people don't even know.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's like a lot of people push away those parts of themselves, and they want to reject these parts of themselves. But that's not the answer, because the more we reject that part of ourselves, the more that part of yourself is going to come back with a vengeance.
Right.
But when we can love and accept those parts, that's when real transformation can happen, because we don't transform out of hate. Not long term. We don't. Maybe we can do it short term, but not long term. We can transform ourselves out of love.
I love that because a lot of times when, we talk about families and when they're wanting you to change and they're like looking at you like, hello, your life is a shit show. Why don't you just stop that? Right. And you're like, yeah, that sounds great. I would love to do that, but I don't know how to. Right. And a lot of times it's taken on by that person who's going through it as like negativity or like, I'm not good enough or I'm not loved. I'm not cared about. I'm just a bad person because I keep doing this behavior. And it's like, for some reason, like as you continue to go down that shame path, it gets worse and worse. Yes. What is that? Like what, obviously shame is not a good thing, but why is it that shame kind of makes us go more into this cycle that we don't want?
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of shame-based behaviors that we do in our society, and it doesn't really make sense because we're all human. We've all not been perfect. There's all been things that we've done that we're not completely proud of. And I think the reason somebody keeps going deeper and deeper into the shame cycle is because they've been doing these things since they were kids. And it's a really hard cycle to break. The different types of shame cycles are the perfectionism cycle, where you have someone who's attempting to be perfect and they have to live life a certain way because if they're not perfect, then it might show them that they're not good enough. So they have to be rigid and perfect. And then another one is these exhibitionary tendencies where people go the other side of shame, right? It's like, oh, I'm not ashamed of myself. I'm going to be really extra and really big, and I'm going to be very dramatic. And that's actually a shame cycle as well, because you're still acting from a place of shame, right?
Right. And that's something that we've seen a lot in treatment too. And I want to touch on that because that's something that a lot of times we don't see. A lot of people, or we don't talk about. A lot of people seem, and me myself also, I seem to be like ashamed of what I was doing and I would hide, right? And I see that a lot. Like people don't want people to know. My husband, on the other hand, whole world knew what he was doing all the time and he was super proud of himself, right? Because in his eyes, like he had to claim it because people are going to talk about it. They're going to, we live in a very small town. People are going to talk about it. They're going to hear about it. So I might as well be as crazy as I can be and you might as well know it up front, right? So what is the difference there? As take it as like, I'm going to like hide and shame is this way. What is that other side of shame that is like, let me show my ass?
Yeah. No, I think that they're the same. It's just how the person responds to shame. There's other people that respond to shame out of anger, and they get so angry if you call them out or if you say anything that makes them feel less than. There's that anger response. And then there's some shame-based behaviors that I will be who you want me to be. I don't know who I am, but I'll be who you want me to be. And the root of all of these is shame. And underneath shame is I'm not allowed to be human, right? I'm not allowed to do these certain things or feel these certain ways because if I do, that would mean I am bad. And what I personally think it's rooted in is I think it's rooted in, when we're kids and you're doing something and they say, no, that's bad. No, that's bad. Bad, bad, bad. We start to take on that message as I am bad. And so I truly believe that shame-based behaviors sometimes are rooted out of that childhood notion of I'm not good enough and I'm bad. So I need to prove that I'm not bad.
Right. So another thing that you kind of touched on was childhood trauma. And I know that a lot of people who are in addiction or in alcoholism, things like that, a lot of people have a lot of childhood trauma. But some people, when you talk to them, and it could be that they just don't know or don't remember, but some people don't have trauma and still deal with these, or like what you would consider trauma, and still deal with alcoholism, addiction. So can you kind of explain what the root of addiction and alcoholism is a lot, or where you kind of feel like it comes from? Like, what is it for you?
Yeah, for me, what I've seen is absolutely there's a genetic predisposition to addiction, right? And what we know in a neuroscience lens is these certain genes get turned on by overuse, right? Or by repetitive cycle of binging alcohol or, doing a certain drug. So these genetic traits can be turned on. So from a brain standpoint, we know that. But from an emotional and psychological perspective, I truly believe it's the person attempting to numb from life.
Yes.
And it's their numbing device. And I truly believe, and this is very controversial, but I truly believe that we're all addicts and alcoholics and drug addiction. That was just like their way of numbing, right? But we also numb through social media and relationships and sex, and it goes on and on and on. And it's that tendency to not be with what is, right? To be alive and be okay with what's happening. We have a tendency to numb because we're so scared of pain. And pain is uncomfortable. We don't like it. And I do feel like we live in a society where numbing is so easy. It's so easy. I just grab my phone and there I am, I'm numbing, right? So I do think that addiction is rooted out of numbing and not wanting to feel and escapism, I also think that there's a connection from what I've seen with working with a lot of clients in recovery is I think there's a connection between needing a belonging, like there's some sort of a social connection that gets lost, right? Like I do feel like if we had connection and we had a fellowship that really cared about us, I think it would make the world a difference in recovery and being sober. So I think there's some sort of connection.
So I love that you said what you said about the stuff that was controversial about us all kind of being addicts, because I think, so there's this part in the big book that says something about, like, I drink because I like the effects produced by alcohol. It's not like because I fell off my bike when I was young, I got molested when I was young, or this type of thing. I like what this does to me, which is basically saying I like the numbing effect, or I like this, or I like that, right? And for me, numbing was amazing because I was super shy. So like when I would go somewhere and people would like never know it, right? But when I would go somewhere, it would like hurt me to be there. Like I would be so anxious about everything and nothing at the same time. So when I would drink all the time, none of that would happen. But I believe, so that's what I like. But I believe that there's people who smoke weed, for instance, and they don't like what it does to them. So that's not their thing, right? They could eat and they love what sugar does to them, and that is their thing. Or somebody might drink and they don't really care about the effects of alcohol or love it or hate it. They might be able to have a drink and like, yeah, that's fun, that's cool. I don't want to be like that all the time because that's not my favorite feeling. So that person is never going to get addicted to that. But they may be addicted to their phone or something else. So I think what you were saying is very true, because just because you're not an alcoholic or an addict or, right, there's so many other things. And when we look at it as you're addicted because you like that feeling, well, you might not like alcohol. What do you like? What are you? If you really think about it, what are some things that you're overdoing in your life? And I think all of us have that in us. So I think you're right about it.
Yeah. I mean, being human it can be a really tough experience, and based on the spiritual curriculum that we signed up for before we got here, we're going to have a lot of lessons to learn, and we're going to have a lot of hard times. We're going to also have amazing times, and that all is so hard to just be present with sometimes if we're not doing the work. Yeah.
Yes. So talking about numbing and things like that, I was going through TikTok, where did that come from? Talking, the people that I follow was talking about, he had only been sober for about 90 days. And he was talking about how he had went to a party and he was so unbelievably uncomfortable. He did not feel fun. He was like, I've loved being sober, but I miss being like the life of the party. And like, I feel like I'm almost not me without alcohol. And can you talk about kind of how changing your dopamine and things like that, and you're having fun, and how in early sobriety that is different than who you're going to be a year in, right?
That's
or like
such a good question.
whatever, like, because I used to dread getting sober because I'm like, I've been sober for 30 days and I hated my whole entire life. Like, I was so depressed. I was so anxious. Everywhere I went, I was not having fun. I could be going out to eat. I love to eat. I'm not having any fun, right? That's not how I feel today. And I don't think people really realize, like, if you've been drinking since I started drinking using prescription drugs for ADD, Adderall, when I was 11, started overusing it when I was 12. I started drinking at least every weekend when I was 12, 13. So if you think about, you've been doing that, and I'm now 35 and I'm stopping, I'm not who I'm going to be when I stop, right? Like, all your chemicals are out of balance. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think you hit right on the head on that. Is when you're first sober, first off, your brain is going through a detox process, right? You are getting all those chemicals, you're getting everything out of your system, and your brain is going through a new homeostasis. Your brain is just basically responding to what you've been doing to it. So if your brain is used to you giving it substances every single day or drinking every single day, it thinks, okay, this is my set point. This is my norm. And whenever you just stop doing that, the brain goes through this regulation period of, okay, what's going on now? I even have clients that did dry January, right? And even a little bit of alcohol and you go to nothing, it completely changes your brain chemistry in the system.
Hey, dry January. Like, can we do at least, I hate it just because I've worked in treatment and I'm like, 30 days is not enough to see. And yes, it is a starting point and hopefully you keep after that. But oh my goodness, that is not how you're going to feel, even if you're a moderate drinker, because you're just have your brain all over the place. Okay, go ahead.
Yes. But your brain is definitely all over the place. And then you got to think too, it's almost like learning a new skill. Like if I were to go and ski for the first time in the snow and I've never done that before, I'm not going to be like a world-class skier. I'm going to be out there really having a hard time. I'm going to be uncomfortable. I'm not going to love the skiing experience because I don't know what I'm doing. So it's kind of the same thing as you're exposing your brain to a new way of life and your brain doesn't know what it's doing, basically. And hopefully they have a guide, people that are getting sober, like someone like you that can take them through the work and kind of be a guiding post for them. But at the same time, they're new. And what we know also is if somebody started using drugs and alcohol heavily at the age of 13 and then they're 30, they're probably going to go back to that socio-emotional standpoint when they were 13. So you have some catching up to do. So what I would tell people who are newly sober is hang on and let yourself be in the discomfort. We don't need to be comfortable all the time. In fact, discomfort is where we grow. So allow yourself to have those weird feelings and not feel comfortable and not feel like you fit in, and know that this is a growth period for you. And you will start to adjust back into your authenticity, because when we're doing substances so much, how can we be authentic? We can't be our true selves because we're just on this substance all of the time.
I remember, and it's funny because I was just like, where are we even at? Like, what time is it? I could literally talk to you forever. But I want
to.
But remember a time where I went out to lunch with you and just talking about like our personal experiences and stuff. And I had a dream where somebody I knew when I was little who had passed away from cancer came to me in my dream and told me something. And I'm not going to say it here because I don't want to go into it forever, but you actually said to me, have you ever thought that you are not being your authentic self? And you're very empathic, right? That's just something you were gifted with. And for those of us who believe in that type of stuff, oh my goodness, I've seen it, right? You are a very empathic person. And at the time, I didn't really understand that. And it's funny when I go back and look, because I feel like that was a sign from my higher power that I needed to start changing and really looking into myself and figuring out who I am and what I am and get sober. consistently, right? But it wasn't something I was talking about or being honest about at the time. And you very much caught me off guard with that because I hadn't talked to anybody about it ever, right? I was trying to keep my job and be in my own little space. And that wasn't something I was willing to even look at myself, right? And as I look back now, that was like a huge moment in my life because I was like, I am not happy. I am not authentic. I'm not any of those things. And I want to look at why. Like, I want to know why. Why do I want to live like this? I don't. So why am I? Right. And I think finding out who you are authentically, it sounds like very surface level. Like, who am I? Right. What am I here for? What is my purpose? Like, it's something that is kind of just thrown out there. But truthfully, like our spirit needs that, right? It needs us to be us and to have a purpose and to work at that purpose. That's what brings you that joy in life that people talk about, that I had no idea what they meant. I was like, I don't think I've ever experienced being like content. And I think a lot of people feel that and they don't know how to pinpoint that, right? But that was a time in my life where you really pinpointed it for me, like, hey, maybe this is coming to you because you need to look at your life and why you're not feeling happy or authentic or content, right? And what do you say is like a starting point for people who are just in that position where they're like, I don't want to say, we throw around depression, anxiety, things like that. I just want to say, like, I'm just not happy. I'm not content with life. Like, where's a starting point to like find that? And of course, happiness is not always, right? I'm talking about like, I legitimately enjoy my life, Yeah.
I think what's coming to me right now to say is that start to become aware of how you're living your life. Are you living life based on other people? What I'm seeing in my mind is almost like compass points outside of ourselves. Like, how is my partner responding to me? How's my friend responding to me? How's my boss responding to me? When we're living in inauthenticity, we're more focused on other people's response to us instead of, how do I feel about that? What's going on with me? How am I feeling? When I tell people about authenticity, and let's say that they're dating, right? They're going out in the dating world. I tell them, instead of thinking about that person's response to you, like, do they like me? Do I think, do they think I'm funny? Do they think I'm cute? Do they think I have a banging body? Like, instead of that, start feeling how you feel in your body. What's going on with my heart? What's going on with my body? Do I feel comfortable? Do I feel safe? That brings us back into authenticity because we are connected to ourselves instead of being connected to people's response to us. So I would truly start there, start to bring awareness back to you and start to just wake up to what are you experiencing in your body? And from your lens, what are you seeing? What are you feeling? And I think that's hard to do, but once we become aware that we're so outside of ourselves, we can bring that power back into authenticity.
Yes. Okay. So my last kind of question before we get into some stuff about you is the shamanic journeys and the meditations and things like that. I had a really hard time learning to meditate and settling down, like super all over the place, ADD brain, and it was something I had to really work at. But I noticed that it really, really helped my anxiety. And one thing that I got to do with you was a spirit animal meditation.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the coolest things that I've ever done, because at the time especially, I've done a lot more with meditation and stuff, but at the time my experience was I hadn't really meditated. I could not sit still. We were getting in a room for an hour and a half with a bunch of people with blankets and pillows in the dark and you talking. And I was like, get me the hell out of here, right? Get me the hell out. And like a spirit animal, a joke for me, right? Like, you're my spirit animal. You're my favorite person. So I had no idea what that entailed or what that meant. And this was my experience, Laura Martinez. You started the meditation, and here was my take. I love pit bulls. I'm obsessed with pit bulls. That's my animal. That's what I'm going to see because none of this stuff works. And if I see any, it will be a pit bull because that's what I want to see. And I've never been able to do any type of meditation or sitting still and have it make sense. So you started speaking It was an hour and a half meditation, something like that, hour and a half. And I felt like I woke up 3 minutes later. And when I tell you that I saw a gorilla, and I don't even know where that would have came from in my mind. That's not even an animal that would, like, I would have personally ever thought of, right? So it did not come from, it was literally like, it felt like it was a 3 minute transition. I did not move. I did not fall asleep. And I was like in the woods, like in this thing with this gorilla, and like it was like protecting babies that it had. And when we later looked into it, and this has been quite a while now, but I always have gorillas, like I have a picture of a gorilla. But it was basically all about being like a protector and like mother instincts, and maybe not always feeling protected by other people, right? So always feeling the need to protect others. And like the things that I read were like on spot about how I was feeling and just me in general. And it blew me away. So can you tell us like a bit about just like how these, I know you said a little bit in the beginning, but how these journeys kind of like, how they work, what they do, because it really did mean a lot to me, and kind of, it was so soothing and cool for me.
Yeah, it really is. I hear a lot of feedback that way. Is I was expecting a certain animal and this other animal came in that I would have never thought of myself. And I love those experiences because you know that they're these authentic soul experiences. But a spirit animal in shamanism is basically a spiritual energy that is around you. And in shamanism, we believe that animals are very sacred and they're almost like angels on earth. And so the animal energy is here to teach us. And if you got the gorilla, it absolutely means you're a protector. And I know that's true about you. And so each of these animals, they have different meanings. Like my main spirit animal is the peacock, and it's about being bold and authentic with who you are. And that was a lifelong lesson to me, to be able to really show my feathers and be who I am actually, and be able to be vulnerable, right? And so whenever you go into this trance state, you're able to go into the spirit world and you're able to have that animal be presented to you. So basically what you did is you went into an alternate state of reality, and that animal came to you, and because you opened the space for it to happen. And we can do this at any time. My soul doggy, he actually passed away about a year ago, and I go into that altered state and I commune with him and I talk with him and we hang out together. So these altered states of reality.
Everywhere. It came everywhere with you. I remember your.
Oh, I know. I miss him so much. But we're able to see each other in this like spirit and the spirit place. And so we just don't know what our brains and our spirits can do for us until we start to really allow ourselves to open up these different worlds.
So I love just the peacock in general, and I haven't read into like the spirit animals and like what they mean besides mine, stuff like that. But that's hilarious to me and so on point, because it is so you. You are so, I can't even like think of the word, maybe like eccentric. It's not hippie, but it's so like
a little bit.
You're just so empathic and so connected and so like different and so out there and special. Like you just can be yourself, and like always, no matter who's around, you are who you are. And that's one of my favorite qualities about you.
Thank you.
The feathers and the just like, hi, it's me. That is so you. So I love that. Love that. And my last question when you were talking was going to be, do all dogs go to heaven? Because so many pups, and then you said what you said. So I love that. I love that there is a way to connect and, just be in a different state, because honestly, there are so many things about this world and our journeys that we don't know, right? And I think our brain is capable of much more than we know and then we give it credit for.
Oh, absolutely. I think the sky's the limit, and we've been told our whole lives through society and whoever that we are limited beings, and we are not limited beings. We are creators, and we can empower ourselves through that connection.
So I hope like in this specific podcast, if my viewers get anything from it, I really do hope it is that they get that they can connect with themselves, with their higher selves, with their higher power, and become and be whoever it is that they want to be. And there's not this, you are who you are right now and you're not happy with it and you're really not happy, right? Like this is why people do things like commit suicide and things like that, because they feel like they're stuck where they're at. And I was at that point at the end of my addiction, was like, I feel like I can't live sober. Like I don't like being sober. And I also hate being drunk. Like I'm not having fun. I'm just in this rotation where I don't like who I am either way. So like, why am I here? Like what is the purpose? And I've never been a person in the past who dealt with like suicidal ideations or anything like that. So for me to like come to that point and feel that way was like, whoa, like what is really going on? And what it really was for me, and I hope like other people can see too, is like I just wasn't okay where I was at, sober or not sober. And like you can change that. You can always change that. And I hope that like listening to you today, people hear that like you can really change like what your brain is doing, what you're feeling, your behaviors, all of it. You can be whoever you want to be.
Yes. Yeah. You have your own personal medicine inside of you. And once you are awakened to that medicine and you start to allow that medicine to come out into the world, it is not only amazing for you in your life and your life starts to unfold and change, it's healing for the rest of humanity. So I empower anyone who's listening to this to stop pretending, stop being a cookie cutter and doing the same shit over and over again, and really be weird and authentic and your true self, because that is what we need in this world.
And seek help from different people you wouldn't, normally think of, be it like a therapist, a coach, whatever. Like talk to different people who specialize in meditation, like try out different things. Even like I hated exercise with my whole entire heart. Like I hated it. And I've been doing like for the last few months, just like a half hour a day. And like the way that it brings me like energy and motivation is just like crazy to me. I didn't even know that was a thing. And just doing that small amount, right? Because I would dread it so much. But like just try different things and like different people. I think we're all connected in so many different ways and we're here to like guide and help each other.
Oh, absolutely. And by the way, you look amazing. And I can tell that you are so happy authentically. And I'm so proud of you. I just want you to know that. I'm so proud of you for the work you've done. You can tell that you've been doing the work. Yeah.
You're going to make me tear up. No, seriously, like it has been like, miss so many things about working together, working in treatment, but so glad about where we are and how far we've come. So let's talk about it. Right now, you own DFW Spirituality, right? But you have some changes coming up. So your Instagram name is DFW Spirituality. It's going to be changing, and you are going to be changing because you have this new venture coming in. So guys, if you think all this stuff that we've been talking about is super cool, go check her out on Instagram. She has so many cool things going on. She does a lot of Instagram lives, all that type of stuff. But tell us about the changes coming up and what you've got going on.
Yeah, so I started a podcast called The Shamanic Therapist, and I love doing that work. It's so much fun, as you know. And I just trademarked neuro shamanic therapy. It's basically my modality of how I do therapy with clients, and realize this is something that probably has been done before, but I want to really showcase this on a big scale, because I really believe that whenever you merge shamanism, neuroscience, and typical therapy something very powerful happens. It's the mind, the body, and the spirit connection. So yeah, I'm in the middle of calling myself the neuroshamanic therapist. And so you can follow me on Instagram though at DFW Spirituality. I will still have that page. It will just redirect over to the neuroshamanic therapist. So that's coming out soon.
Yes, I'm so excited for you. And like it really is a perfect representation of you and like what you have always done and always encompassed. So I think this is just like a pure example of like someone growing into their true purpose, right? So cool. The neuroshamanic therapist, right?
Yes, thank you so much for having me on. I had such a blast. I feel like I could talk to you for another hour.
I know it. I'm going to talk you into a series. It's happening.
Okay, I love it. Just let me know.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on, and you have been so awesome today and awesome in general. I love you so much, and I wish you so much happiness.
I love you too, and I'll be talking to you soon.
Yes, bye-bye.
Okay, bye.